Have you ever stared at an HOA violation notice for your grass being 1 inch too tall and wondered if this was really America? Have you ever watched a neighbor turn a public pool into her personal throne room with rules no one voted on? What if the guy everyone wrote off as the quiet pushover had been watching, waiting, and ready to turn her own game against her? It wasn't the splash of kids in the water that caught my attention that Saturday at Willow Creek Estate's community pool. It was the silence right before her voice sliced through the humid air like a lawnmower on a Sunday morning. You know that kind of silence, the one where neighbors suddenly become very interested in their sunscreen, pretending not to notice the storm brewing in lounge chair row 3. I was sitting a few spots over, notebook in lap, pretending to read, but really just observing like I'd been doing for months. My name's Mark Thompson, and if you asked Karen Whitaker, the self-appointed queen of our HOA board, I'd be that difficult one who once dared to paint his fence a shade too close to beige instead of the approved ivory mist. She slapped me with a $500 fine last year, spread whispers at block parties that I was undermining community standards. I paid it quietly, smiled, nodded, but I started keeping notes. Every petty citation, every selective enforcement, every time she bent the rules for her friends. Patience isn't weakness. It's a loaded gun with the safety on. The pool was packed that day. The kind of perfect suburban scene Karen loved to brag about in her monthly newsletters. Harmony in every splash. Yeah, right. Across from me sat Emily Hayes, 7 months pregnant. Still new enough to the neighborhood that she hadn't learned the Karen playbook yet. Soft-spoken, gentle posture, one hand always resting protectively on her belly like it was the most precious cargo in the world. She just wanted to relax in the shade, escape the Texas heat for an hour. But people like Karen don't let peace last long. The voice came out sharp, high-pitched, dripping with that fake politeness that masks pure entitlement. "Excuse me, dear, but that's my chair." Emily looked up, startled but calm, adjusting her sun hat. "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see a reserved sign. The attendant said all chairs were open today." Karen leaned in, floral dress fluttering like a battle flag, her hand hovering like she might snatch Emily's towel. "No, I've sat here every Saturday for 8 years. It's tradition. My seat." Her voice carried across the water, making a few kids stop splashing. Neighbors glanced up from their books, but most just shifted uncomfortably. The classic HOA dance. Nobody wants to be the one who gets cited next. You could feel the collective breath holding, that awkward tension where everyone's thinking not my problem. Emily's fingers tightened on her book. "I can move if it's a big deal." But the pool attendant didn't mention any special rules. Karen's jaw clenched, that smile cracking at the edges. "There are no mix-ups in Willow Creek. You must have taken the wrong spot. Move now, please." The please was tacked on like an afterthought, the way Karen always did to sound reasonable while twisting the knife. And then it happened. The careless flick of Karen's wrist as she gestured toward the pool deck path, her hand brushing hard against Emily's shoulder. It wasn't a full shove, but it was sharp, intrusive, the kind of move that says I own this space and you don't belong. Emily recoiled instinctively, pressing a hand to her belly. My pulse spiked, because it wasn't just rude. It was dangerous. I glanced around. The guy 2 chairs down had half his phone raised, pretending to scroll but clearly recording. 2 pool attendants had frozen mid-step near the snack bar. They recognized the type, the board president who weaponizes community standards. I'd seen this dance before. The entitled versus the decent. And the decent always start by trying to reason. But people like Karen don't want reason. They want submission. Emily tried once more. "Ma'am, I can show you my pool pass. I don't want trouble." Karen barked loud enough that the mom in 4C flinched. "I don't need to see your pass. I know where I'm supposed to sit. I always sit here. And you people just don't understand how things work around here." She stopped herself mid-sentence. But that tiny pause was louder than any slur. The silence afterward was like a vacuum. Emily's lips trembled, but she kept her voice steady. "Please don't raise your voice. I'm just sitting where they told me." That was when something inside me snapped. Not in anger, but in clarity. This wasn't about a chair. It was about power. the kind that hides behind laminated bylaws and fake smiles. I unbuckled my pool chair strap slowly, leaned forward just enough to speak evenly. Karen, I said, why don't you show everyone the bylaw that says this chair is yours? Let's just check. Karen turned toward me with a glare that could peel paint. Mark, this has nothing to do with you. I smiled, polite, deliberate. Seems to have a lot to do with everyone at this pool. Her nostrils flared. I don't need to justify myself to a resident who can't even follow fence color guidelines. No one's asking for justification. I said softly, just a little decency. The guy filming lowered his phone slightly, eyes darting between us. The attendants still hadn't moved. They wanted resolution without confrontation, the kind of passive hope that lets arrogance win. Karen crossed her arms, shaking her head like she couldn't believe she was being challenged. I paid my dues for this seat. This is the president's row. I expect respect. Emily spoke again, her voice trembling but honest. I respect you, ma'am. I really do. But this is just a chair. I'm not trying to take anything that isn't mine. It was such a simple truth. And yet it hung there, fragile, under the weight of Karen's disbelief. That's when the first attendant finally stepped forward, a young woman with a nervous smile that looked rehearsed. Mrs. Whitaker, can I please see the board policy on reserved chairs? Karen handed over her laminated president's pass with a huff, muttering under her breath about incompetence and how she shouldn't have to deal with this. The attendant scanned it, frowned slightly, then checked the pool log. Ma'am, she said carefully, our system shows no reserved chairs today. All are first come, first served. Karen blinked. For a moment, she seemed confused. Then, instead of apologizing, she doubled down. That can't be right. I specifically requested it. The bylaws say, maintain harmony, and your pregnancy is disrupting my relaxation harmony. The attendant's voice was calm, but firmer now. If you'd like, I can help you move your bag to another chair. You could practically see Karen's pride cracking. She turned toward Emily again. Well, maybe you should just move anyway. I need to sit near the front. It's better for my back. Emily blinked, taken aback. Ma'am, I'm pregnant. I'd really prefer to stay where I am. The words landed like a stone. For the first time, Karen looked slightly thrown, but pride wouldn't let her yield. Pregnant or not, this isn't your seat in spirit. You should understand that. That phrase, in spirit, hit me like a slap. It wasn't about a chair. It was about place. About who belonged where in Karen's perfect little kingdom. I could feel my hands gripping the armrest now, forcing myself to breathe. Because people like Karen crave the spotlight of conflict. But if you shine the right kind of light on them, they crumble. So I waited. The attendant gently asked Karen again to move, offering to bring her a complimentary drink once seated. Karen refused, voice rising. I'm not going anywhere until this is fixed. She's in my seat. And that's when I noticed 3 other residents subtly lifting their phones. The pool wasn't ignoring her anymore. It was recording. Accountability had arrived, quiet, glowing, unavoidable. Karen didn't see it yet, but her stage was being built around her. Emily's hand trembled slightly as she adjusted her seat belt. Her chair cushion. Her breathing was shallow, her eyes darting around like she just wanted the afternoon to end. I leaned a little closer to the guy beside me, whispered, "Keep filming." He nodded. Karen's tirade continued, each sentence louder, each word an unraveling thread of control. I don't care what the system says. You people just don't understand how things work. I run this board. I have status. The attendant's patience thinned. Ma'am, please lower your voice. But Karen didn't. Her tone turned sharp enough to cut glass. You're defending her because you're scared of causing a scene. Well, guess what? I am the scene. And in a way, she was right. She had turned the pool into a stage, but not the one she thought she owned. The residents' eyes weren't on Emily anymore. They were on her, judgmental, cold, disgusted. The audience had shifted its sympathy. I saw the moment she realized it. A flicker in her eyes. A microsecond of panic when she noticed the cameras. She turned slightly, trying to adjust her dress. Smoothing her hair like vanity could patch over humiliation. The attendant's radio buzzed faintly. Reinforcement from the clubhouse. We're documenting the incident, she said softly. Please take an available chair. Mrs. Whitaker. Karen's mouth opened, then closed again. She looked around, saw everyone watching. Her cheeks flushed pink, then red. You're all ridiculous, she muttered. But it came out small, brittle. Emily exhaled, the first full breath she'd taken in minutes. The attendant guided Karen toward row 5. She stomped once, muttered something about lawsuits and disrespect, but eventually sat down. The entire pool seemed to exhale with her departure, like someone had released the pressure valve on an emotional boiler. Emily kept her eyes forward, quiet, dignified. The other residents started whispering subtle nods in her direction. One older man leaned across the aisle and said softly, "You handled that well, miss." She smiled weakly. "I just didn't want to make it worse." I looked at her and said, "You didn't. You showed more strength than she'll ever understand." Her eyes met mine. Tired, grateful, steady. For the next 20 minutes the pool was silent except for the low hum of the filter. I thought it was over. But arrogance doesn't go quietly. It festers, waiting for a new chance to strike. Half an hour later the sun was higher. I saw Karen flag down a pool attendant again, this time with a sugary smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I'd like to file a formal complaint," she said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "That woman, the pregnant one, she was aggressive with me." You could almost feel the disbelief ripple through the water. Heads turned. Emily froze. The attendant blinked. "Ma'am, our records." "I don't care about your records," Karen snapped. She touched me. I felt unsafe. That was it. The lie. The last desperate swing of someone who couldn't stand losing control. I unbuckled quietly and stood. "That's not true." Karen's head whipped around. "Excuse me." I held her gaze. "You brushed against her." I saw it. So did half this pool, and some of us recorded it. "You really want to talk about who touched whom?" Her face went pale. "You can't record people without permission." I smiled faintly. "Maybe not. But you know what's funny? When someone acts this loud in public, permission kind of fades into consequence." Murmurs spread. The guy with the phone 2 rows back held it up slightly. "Got the whole thing," he said. "Audio's clear." Karen froze. Shoulders stiff. Every trace of superiority draining away. The attendant spoke softly. "Ma'am, please lower your voice. We're done here." But Karen couldn't stop herself. "This is harassment. I'll sue all of you." That was the moment the clubhouse manager's voice came over the pool speakers, calm, commanding. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is management. We're aware of a disturbance at the pool. We ask for cooperation and respect for our staff and fellow residents. Thank you." The sound of that authority was the final nail in the coffin. Karen slumped back into her chair, eyes wet, face red, muttering to herself. The power she once wielded had evaporated, not because someone yelled louder, but because the truth had been witnessed, recorded, undeniable. The afternoon continued in near silence. The attendants moved quietly with towels. Emily asked for ginger ale. Her hand still trembled slightly, but her breathing had steadied. I passed her a napkin. "You did nothing wrong," I said again. She nodded. "I know. I just hate that people think they can treat others like that." I wanted to tell her the neighborhood was changing, that people were better than that. But I'd seen too much to lie. "Sometimes they need reminders," I said instead. "Sometimes we have to be the reminder." Hours later, as the sun dipped and people packed up, you could feel the strange peace that follows a storm. Karen stayed silent the rest of the afternoon, avoiding eye contact. Emily rested her head against the chair, eyes closed, one hand still over her stomach. When the pool closed, the attendants made a quiet note that the resident issue was resolved on site with no escalation. That's HOA code for we defused the bomb without smoke. As everyone headed to the parking lot, Emily waited. Maybe instinct, maybe caution. Karen bolted for her SUV, pretending to scroll through her phone, pretending she hadn't just humiliated herself in front of the entire neighborhood. I caught up to Emily near the gate. "You getting a ride home?" I asked. "No," she said softly. "Going home? Baby's due next month." "Congratulations." She smiled. "Thank you for saying something." I shrugged. "You already did the hard part. You stayed calm. That's harder than shouting." She nodded, eyes glistening. I almost didn't. But then I thought, what kind of world am I bringing a child into if I just stay quiet? That one sentence stuck with me long after we left the pool. At the neighborhood email group that night, Karen sent her version. Dear Willow Creek family, I was physically assaulted today by a resident at the pool. The pregnant woman shoved me and made me feel unsafe in our own community space. I will be filing a formal complaint with the board and requesting her removal from amenities until this is investigated. The lie was typed in perfect 12-point Arial, signed with her official title and a little heart emoji like she was still the friendly president. But arrogance never learns. I hit reply all. Attached the clearest video. Actually, here's what really happened. Audio included. Feel free to watch before any investigation. Within minutes, the thread exploded. Neighbors who had stayed silent at the pool suddenly found their voices. I saw the whole thing. This is the third time she's pulled this. Remember when she fined Mark for his fence? The group chat turned into a digital courtroom. By Monday morning, the board called an emergency meeting. Karen walked in wearing her best, "I'm just here to serve" smile, clutching her binder of bylaws like a shield. She started her speech about safety and standards, voice dripping with that same fake politeness. We cannot allow aggression in our community. I stood up, phone in hand. Before you go any further, let's watch the evidence. I hit play on the big screen. The entire room watched Karen's hand connect with Emily's shoulder. Heard her say, "You people." Heard her double down on the lie. The silence that followed was thicker than the one at the pool. Karen's face went from confident to pale to purple. This is edited. They're all against me because I enforce the rules. But the videos kept coming, 3 different angles. Crystal clear. Then I dropped the folder I'd been keeping for a year. Photos of Karen's own unapproved backyard edition. Emails showing she waived fines for her best friend's late dues. Minutes where she changed rules on the fly to suit herself. The room turned. One by one, board members who had nodded along for years finally spoke up. This has gone too far. We voted you in to serve, not rule. You're out. Karen stood there sputtering, trying to regain control. But the votes came fast. Motion to remove her as president, unanimous. She gathered her things with shaking hands, muttering about lawsuits and betrayal. But it came out small, brittle. The power she once wielded had evaporated in the bright lights of the community center, just like it had at the pool. Emily wasn't even there. But the neighborhood had finally chosen decency over dictatorship. Weeks later, I got an email from the new board. Dear Mark, we wanted to thank you for assisting in maintaining calm during the pool incident. The resident you defended wrote to commend your kindness. Attached was a note from Emily herself. I don't know if you remember me, but I wanted to say thank you. That afternoon changed me. I used to think staying quiet was safer. Now I know that silence only helps the loudest voices. My baby girl was born healthy, and when she's old enough to understand, I'll tell her about the neighbor who proved that calm courage still exists. I must have read that line a dozen times. Funny thing is, I didn't feel like a hero. I felt like a witness. Someone lucky enough to see what grace under pressure really looks like. Because when you strip away the titles, the fake bylaws, and the status emails, you're left with something painfully simple: how we treat each other when nobody's keeping score. Karen thought power came from attention. Emily showed it comes from composure. And me? I learned that sometimes the smallest act, standing up, speaking once quietly, can tilt an entire neighborhood toward justice. I don't know what happened to Karen after that. Maybe she doubled down, blamed everyone else. Or maybe somewhere deep down she replayed that moment, the silence of 100 neighbors watching her lose control, and it changed something. I like to think it did. Maybe she'll never say it out loud. But sometimes the loudest lessons don't need words. So yeah, that pool day wasn't just another Saturday for me. It was a mirror showing how fragile decency can be and how strong it becomes when just one person decides to hold the line. And maybe that's the part that sticks with me most. Not the confrontation, not the videos, but the look in Emily's eyes when she realized she wasn't alone. Because in the end, that's all any of us really want when life gets cruel, to know that somebody, somewhere is willing to say enough. Tell me what you think. If you'd been at that pool, would you have stepped in or stayed quiet? Would you have filmed or spoken or waited for someone else? Because maybe the next time something like this happens, the answer to that question could be what changes everything. In the quiet suburbs of America, where HOAs promise harmony but deliver control, one woman's entitlement finally met its match. The lesson? Silence empowers tyrants until the quiet observer decides to speak. Stay observant. Document everything. And remember, the loudest Karen always crumbles when the neighborhood finally watches back.